Ukraine's new thermobaric grenade fits in your pocket. Russia's level cities. So most people have the wrong mental image for thermobaric weapons. They picture Russia, the TOS-1 multiple rocket launcher firing 30 thermobaric warheads at once, turning a city block into a sustained fireball. The ODAB 1500, a 1,500-kilogram glide bomb that creates a mushroom cloud visible from miles away, and recently got dropped on a residential area in Sumy. The weapon the Kremlin has used against apartment buildings in Chechnya, against hospitals in Syria, and against Ukrainian cities since February of 2022. That's one thermobaric doctrine, sure. Ukraine just unveiled a different one at Eurosatory in Paris this month. It fits in a cargo pocket, it weighs 500 grams, and its entire design philosophy is the opposite of Russia's. Not a weapon of mass destruction scaled down, but a precision close-quarters tool scaled up from a hand grenade. Here's the part that most coverage missed entirely. Ukraine's new thermobaric grenade is 20 to 30% more effective than the one currently in service. And the reason there's a new one at all traces back to a quality control scandal involving a detonator manufactured in 1973. Hey friends, Wes here, defense journalist, Army veteran of the 2nd 327th Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault, and Air Force veteran where we live in fame or go down in flame because... nothing will stop the U.S. Air Force! And as a former grunt who has thought about the problem of clearing fortified positions more than is probably healthy for a civilian, today we're covering thermobaric weapons, what they are, how they work, why Russia uses them one way, and Ukraine uses them an entirely different way, and what Ukraine's brand new RGT-45 tells us about where this war's close-quarters fight is heading. Russia's thermobaric weapons have been used primarily against civilian areas, and their use against Ukrainian cities has been part of an ICC war crimes investigation. Wait, why does Russia bomb civilians? Oh, because they're assholes. I forgot. The TOS-1A has been documented in urban environments across eastern Ukraine, deployed against fixed defensive positions, particularly in urban environments where it delivers both firepower and incendiary effects that physically destroy infrastructure and undermine morale. Ukraine's thermobaric weapons are hand grenades, not a smaller version of the same doctrine, a fundamentally different one. The Ukrainian military uses thermobaric grenades to clear Russian soldiers out of trenches and fortified buildings without flattening the structure. Precision over mass. One room at a time, not one neighborhood at a time. That difference in scale is a difference in intent, and understanding it is the whole point of this video. Let me explain the mechanism, because it's genuinely strange and most coverage gets it wrong. A conventional explosive works by detonating a solid or liquid compound that releases energy in one fast chemical reaction. The pressure wave goes out in all directions. Fragments travel at high speed, and the damage comes from the blast and the shrapnel. A thermobaric weapon works differently. It consists of a fuel container and two separate explosive charges. The first charge detonates to disperse the fuel as an aerosol cloud of particles suspended in the air. The second charge then ignites that dispersed cloud, which burns using the surrounding atmospheric oxygen rather than a built-in oxidizer. What you get is a sustained pressure wave and a fireball rather than an instantaneous blast. The burn lasts longer than a conventional detonation. The pressure spreads further. The resulting overpressure in enclosed spaces is the primary kill mechanism. Though in open terrain without fragmentation, the effect is significantly reduced. That last detail is the key to understanding why thermobaric weapons are so devastating in buildings and so comparatively limited in open ground. In a room, a bunker, a trench system, or a subway tunnel, the overpressure has nowhere to go. It reflects off walls, it compounds, it arrives from multiple directions at once. The effects are compounded in enclosed spaces, making thermobaric weapons highly effective in buildings. The oxygen in that enclosed space also gets consumed, which creates a secondary suffocation effect for anyone who survives the initial blast. In open terrain, with no walls to reflect the pressure wave, the same weapon is considerably less lethal. It's not a magic field clearance device, it's a room clearance device scaled to various delivery systems. And that's the entire doctrinal divide between Russia and Ukraine in one physics lesson. Russia's thermobaric arsenal runs from handheld launcher rounds up to weapons that dwarf anything Ukraine has fielded. The TOS-1A is a short-range multiple rocket launcher that can fire thermobaric warheads in rapid succession. It's doctrinally assigned to Russia's nuclear, biological, and chemical protection troops, and attached to maneuver brigades for operations against fixed defensive positions, particularly in urban environments. Russia used it in Chechnya and used it in Syria. Its deployment was first documented in Ukraine in February of 2022, immediately after the invasion began. Then there's the ODAB 1500, a 1,500 kilogram thermobaric glide bomb that Russia first deployed in Ukraine in March of 2024, striking in the Sumy region. Footage showed a massive mushroom cloud and a fireball visible from miles away, destroying residential areas. Its fireball covers a radius of 150 meters with a lethal zone of 500 meters. Russia has been dropping these on Ukrainian positions with increasing frequency, adapted from Soviet-era bomb technology with modern glide ordnance to extend standoff range beyond Ukrainian air defense coverage. Now, Ukrainian soldiers report morale-shattering blasts, causing concussions and suffocation even for survivors. Russia's thermobaric doctrine is about mass effect at scale. One system, one strike, one very large problem for everyone in the engagement area, and a significant portion of the surrounding geography. Russia's largest thermobaric weapons test in 2007 produced a yield of 44 tons, the so-called father of all bombs, which the Kremlin explicitly marketed as a substitute for low-yield nuclear weapons. The message was not subtle, but Ukraine came to thermobaric weapons from a completely different direction. Ukraine inherited some thermobaric munitions from the Soviet arsenal after independence, including rounds for grenade launchers and shoulder-fired flamethrowers, but its inventory was far smaller than Russia's by any measure. Ukraine's indigenous thermobaric development started in 2017, when Ukroboronprom unveiled the first RGT-27S hand grenade at a Chernihiv training range. The grenades entered service with Ukraine's armed forces in 2019 and 2020, designed specifically to defeat personnel in shelters of various types and incapacitate vehicles and lightly armored equipment. A 600-gram RGT-27 grenade creates a fire cloud of 13 cubic meters for 4 seconds, reaching temperatures of 2,500 to 3,000 degrees Celsius. For scale, that's a fireball about the size of a large SUV, brutally lethal in an enclosed space, limited in open ground, but portable in a standard kit. Ukrainian forces have used these in two main ways. First, the classic application: infantry clearing trenches and fortified buildings in close quarters combat, along the front lines, and in Kursk. You don't want to enter a room behind a soldier with a rifle when there's an entrenched defender waiting on the other side. A thermobaric grenade removes that problem in a way a fragmentation grenade can't fully replicate, because the pressure wave fills the room rather than sending fragments in random directions. The second application is where Ukraine got creative. A Mavic 3 drone operator from the 59th Motorized Brigade destroyed an abandoned Russian BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicle using an RGT-27S2 thermobaric grenade, dropped from above. That video circulated widely in 2023 and demonstrated something important. A grenade weighing under 600 grams, delivered precisely by a commercial drone, can disable an armored vehicle. That was when modern war changed, my friends. You don't need an ODAB 1500 to kill a BMP-2. You just need one Ukrainian soldier with a Mavic and a thermobaric grenade from a hardware store catalog. That's the doctrinal gap in one image. Russia, thermobaric weapons that hurt civilians. Ukraine, thermobaric weapons that fit in a drone delivery payload or a cargo pocket. And I want to explain why the trench and the building application is so tactically significant. Because as an infantryman, a significant part of my training and operational thinking was about how you clear fortified positions, mount military operations in urban terrain, or whatever they're calling it these days. How do you clear those fortified positions without getting yourself killed doing it? Well, the fundamental problem with clearing a trench or a reinforced room is that the defender has an enormous advantage. They know the geometry. They're expecting you. They can cover every obvious entry point, and conventional fragmentation grenades are definitely effective, but they do have limitations in irregular geometries where the fragments can miss pockets of the space. A thermobaric grenade doesn't have that limitation. The pressure wave fills the volume. It goes around corners. It fills the dead space behind cover. In a dugout, a basement, a fortified cellar, or a trench system with overhead cover, it converts the defender's protected position into a scaled-up, easy-bake oven. The very walls that were protecting them now reflect and compound the overpressure. That's not a small tactical advantage in a war where Russia has spent 2 years building layered fortification systems across hundreds of kilometers of front. Clearing those fortifications, one room, one trench, one dugout at a time, is an enormous part of the infantry fight. Anything that makes that process faster and safer for the attacking force, Ukraine, matters enormously at the unit level. And there is a little bit of news here to share. In January of this year, 2026, reports emerged of defective batches of RGT-27S2 grenades in Ukrainian service. Ukroboronprom acknowledged the issue and traced it to an outdated detonator manufactured in 1973. A detonator from '73 was finding its way into grenades being issued to Ukrainian infantry in an active war in 2026. The company that makes the grenade doesn't manufacture the detonator, so they couldn't catch the problem in their own production line. Officials at the time stated that the supplier had been replaced and additional quality control measures have since been introduced, though no publicly available information allows independent assessment of how widespread the defect was among the RGT-27S2 grenades, or whether similar issues affected related munitions, including the PVP-50 anti-personnel mines and the MPEM-1 anti-tank mine that Ukraine uses. That last part deserves a moment. We don't know how many defective grenades made it to the front. We don't know if related components affected other munitions in the same supply chain. Ukroboronprom says the problem is fixed. Independent verification isn't available. I'm not suggesting the company is being dishonest. Wartime quality control is genuinely hard, and they addressed it publicly rather than hiding it, but we fixed it, and we can confirm the scope of the original problem are different statements, and only the first one has been made. Which brings us to the RGT-45 and the RGT-45A, unveiled at Eurosatory 2026 in Paris this month. The RGT-45 weighs 500 grams and contains 300 grams of thermobaric mixture. Its stated effective damage volume exceeds 120 cubic meters in enclosed spaces. The RGT-45A is a compact variant, weighing 225 grams with 135 grams of thermobaric mixture, providing an effective damage volume exceeding 60 cubic meters. For comparison, the old RGT-27 created a fireball of only 13 cubic meters. The RGT-45 claims more than 120 cubic meters. If those figures hold up under field conditions, that's not an incremental improvement. That is a different category of close quarters weapon. Now, the upgraded thermobaric mixture is the key change, not the form factor. Getting 120 cubic meters of effective damage from a 500-gram grenade, roughly the size of a large energy drink can, means the chemistry has improved significantly. Neither system has yet been formally adopted for military service, so these are prototypes at this stage and shown publicly to signal direction and, frankly, to reassure Ukrainian forces after the quality control problem that the development program is moving forward rather than standing still. Okay, one last thing. Thermobaric weapons exist in a legal gray area that's worth naming honestly. International law does not prohibit the use of thermobaric munitions against military targets. As of 2024, all attempts to regulate or restrict thermobaric weapons have failed. The distinction that matters legally and morally is the target. Used against fortified military positions, dugouts, and armored vehicles, thermobaric grenades are legal weapons of war. Used against civilian areas, like Russia does, they become a potential war crime, which is precisely the allegation underlying Russia's use of TOS-1 and ODAB systems against Ukrainian cities. Ukraine's stated doctrine, trench clearing, building clearing, vehicle destruction, stays on the right side of that line. Whether that doctrine holds perfectly across every unit, in every engagement, in a war that's grinding through its 5th year, is a question no one outside the Ukrainian military command can fully answer. What the historical record shows is that Ukraine's thermobaric use has been tactical and targeted. Russia's has been indiscriminate. That difference matters legally, morally, and practically. Russia chose the thermobaric doctrine of mass, big systems, big fireballs, big mushroom clouds, big psychological pressure. if leveled at neighborhoods in Chechnya, is dropping 1,500-kilogram glide bombs on Ukrainian positions and watching mushroom clouds rise over Sumy. Ukraine chose the thermobaric doctrine of precision, a grenade that fits in a cargo pocket, a munition you can deliver from a commercial drone through the opening of a fortified position, a weapon designed to clear the room the soldier is about to enter, not to announce that a large area has been designated for destruction. That's it for today, my friends. If this was useful, please like and subscribe. I cover Ukraine, NATO, modern military technology 4 times a week on YouTube, and the algorithm needs the signal. For deeper analysis, I'm on Substack, where paid members get the longer pieces and early access to what I'm working on. QR codes on the screen or just westodonald.com. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.